To Grid Live pre-race. Formula One's in Mexico City. Who is the favorite to win? Free Practice 3 qualifying later today. NASCAR at Homestead-Miami. Is Kyle Larson destined to win and be in the final championship 4? MotoGP and Supercar Series both holding one race already. We'll recap and preview the second race, all part of the Grid Ranking. My name is Joe Samniego. Thank you so much for tuning in to Grid Live Pre-Race. A big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network each and every month, helping us pay the bills, stay on the air. Link in the video description. You can also make a one-time investment through Buy Me a Coffee or the YouTube Super Chat. We'll thank you on the air as we see it. And of course, if we don't see it, we'll thank you the next time we go on the air. And follow us on Grid Network TV across social media, including our website, articles written each and every week by Matthew Bro covering NASCAR. Don't forget Jackson Lambros covering INDYCAR and so much more on the website. Let's get started. Formula One in Mexico City, the Mexico City Grand Prix. George Russell topped Free Practice 1, but crashed in Free Practice 2. Carlos Sainz, he's looking pretty good. He was the second fastest in Free Practice 1 and the fastest in the second practice of the day. But Max Verstappen, seems like some more trouble for Red Bull. Engine issues. He was out early in Free Practice 2, was saying no power, did not set a lap. He's going to be a little bit behind the ball, but let's be honest. He won here before in Mexico City. I anticipate he is going to be able to get the Red Bull towards the front. He's easily going to out-qualify his teammate, his home country favorite, Sergio Perez. He is going to be behind Max Verstappen qualifying regardless of what happens to Max Verstappen. As long as that car has power, I anticipate Max Verstappen easily outperforming Sergio Perez in qualifying. Practice 3 is about an hour and a half away from now because of the time zones. We don't have the starting lineup. We don't have an idea of what qualifying is going to look like, but I can tell you a couple of things to watch for as qualifying is much later in the day. First off, you got to look at Ferrari. They appear to be the fastest. Carlos Sainz, as I mentioned, very quick in both practice sessions. I anticipate he's going to be fast again in the third practice session. Look at Charles Leclerc. He is going to step it up, I believe, and put his car in the front row. I anticipate one, maybe both Ferraris in the front row for Mexico City. If you're asking what's going to happen to McLaren and Mercedes, they are both contenders as well, especially McLaren. I don't think they've shown exactly their full hand yet. Remember, we're in Mexico City. The elevation changes much higher up, much thinner air. So in the past, it's been sort of a weakness for Mercedes. But after George Russell topping the free practice session, I think they're looking a lot better. McLaren, I believe, has the better car for these conditions compared to Mercedes. So I will not be surprised if you see Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri within the first 2 rows. Now you're asking, what's going to happen to Max Verstappen, especially after his disastrous practice session, Free Practice 2, where he didn't go out and there was engine issues. The engine issues, I believe they're going to be taken care of. He's going to come out Free Practice 3. He's going to easily be in the top 5. I see him potentially in the second or even the third row. I believe Ferrari's faster, so you're going to see those 2 cars in the first 2 rows, and that leaves 2 more spots. I'm going to say one's going to go to a McLaren, one's going to go to a Mercedes. So that's going to put Max Verstappen in that third row. If he could really push the car, especially in some of the technical sections, faster than the others, he might get the second row, but I think he's looking at a third row starting position. And here's the thing. We're in Mexico City. Third row is not the end of the world. If this was something like Hungary, you need to make a big dive bomb move, entering turn 1, try not to crash. But in Mexico City, you have a very long front straightaway. If you're in that second row, you almost have the advantage where you could draft the front row and get a position. If you're in that third row, now you're going to get a lot more of that draft and try to get around him. We've seen drivers try to make bold, aggressive moves. Max Verstappen is known for doing that. I could see Max Verstappen easily utilizing the draft to pick up 2, 3. If he's in that third row, try to get to the lead. I will not be surprised if he pulls that off. But of course, if you have 20 plus cars all entering that first corner, all drafting, there's always the probability of that first corner crash. It's been a while since we've seen a significant first corner crash similar to what we saw in Hungary a few years ago, where Valtteri Bottas, under wet conditions, locked up, took out the Red Bull cars, just caused a big crash in that day. We've seen throughout the history of Formula One a big start, you get too many drivers, and then a big crash at the end of that first corner. For this race in Mexico City, I anticipate we're probably going to see that. You just have all the pieces there for such a crash. Max Verstappen, the defending world champion, he does not have the best car. He's probably going to be in that third row. He's going to be aggressive because he knows that's his best opportunity to get around the Ferraris, the McLarens, potential Mercedes ahead of him. If you don't get it done in that first corner on the first lap, you're going to be right around fourth place, fifth place for the rest of the race. So Max Verstappen is going to be very aggressive. The Mercedes drivers, especially if it's George Russell, I think he's more prone to making a mistake compared to Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton, I could see a crash occurring if he tries to force somebody to make a decision, back out, or cause a collision. With George Russell, I think a little bit more of his over-aggressiveness could cause the crash. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, they're not exactly in familiar territory when it comes to something like this. I could see a mistake by one of them causing a crash. The Ferrari drivers, if they're both in the front row, they're going to have a drag race. Whoever starts on pole, I think, is going to have the advantage. But then you're going to have the drivers behind you drafting and trying to make that pass. So really, you got all the recipes, all the pieces there for a big first corner, first lap crash. Hopefully we don't see it, but it is very probable this could happen. It happened last year. Of course, Sergio Perez made a very aggressive move, got airborne, car was damaged. He was done for in his home country race before he even completed the lap. In case you were wondering, Sergio Perez was 10th fastest in the first practice session and 9th in the second practice session. And Perez, a lot of speculation about his future in Formula One. Will he be back next year? Will he be back with Red Bull? Will he go to VCARP? Will he drive for VCARP if he gets demoted down? We know that car is not exactly the best condition. What's going to happen with Liam Lawson? I'm going to tell you this. There's a lot of factors that, for Sergio Perez, he needs to have a good race weekend. If he does not have a good race weekend, I think very likely he's going to lose his Red Bull seat. This is his home country. We've heard the rumors about F1 asking Red Bull to please keep him in there because of how valuable he is when it comes to ticket sales, fan attendance in Mexico. But now that this race will be over by Monday morning, if he does not have a good race, you got to expect change. You cannot allow the team that just the defending constructor champion, world driver champion, lose the constructor championship. The driver who's going to get the driver championship, Max Verstappen, has not won a race since June. Red Bull has to make some aggressive moves to stay on top. They cannot just remain status quo and hope they get a Belgian car next year. Speaking of next year, I got to say something about Alex Albon. What is going on with Alex Albon lately? It seems that since he got his new teammate, Franco Colapinto, we have seen Alex Albon, I think, repeat the same pressure that he had with Red Bull. Remember what happened with Alex Albon? He came to Red Bull. He started to look really good after Pierre Gasly's unfortunate run tenure at Red Bull. He nearly had a victory in Brazil, but then got spun out by Lewis Hamilton due to contact. A lot of us thought Alex Albon would have a good future ahead. But that second year, he just struggled. The pressure seemed to get to him. Remember when he was on the radio saying how the AlphaTauri teammates were racing him so hard? This is Formula One, buddy. You got to race everyone that hard, Alex Albon. Goes away. He comes back with Williams. He scores points occasionally. Last year, a pretty good year considering the car they had and his teammate, Logan Sargent. Logan Sargent, not exactly holding up anything to Alex Albon. He just could not compete against him in qualifying in the race. I mean, Logan Sargent, I think, unfortunately, I'm saying this, Williams has proven they made the right call by replacing Logan Sargent with Franco. Franco has been really good with that car, bringing points. And while he's doing that, finishing in the points, Alex Albon has been making mistakes. In practice, he got loose, hit Oliver Berman, crashed a car. That car was destroyed. And we all remember what happened with Logan Sargent, crash after crash after crash. And we kept talking about how Williams cannot afford these crashes. Logan Sargent cannot afford making these mistakes because Williams, they cannot spend so much time repairing the cars, trying to get ready for 2025 when Carlos Sainz comes in. Well, now that's not the case. Logan's gone. Franco's scoring points. Why are you doing, Alex Albon? Why are you making these mistakes? You cannot do this. Next year, you're going to have a better teammate with Carlos Sainz, who has proven he could go out there and win. I think this is going to be a lot of pressure on Alex Albon this weekend, the remainder of this year, especially if Franco keeps scoring more points than him. And next year, it's not going to be easier. You're going to have Carlos Sainz. You no longer have a junior teammate. Now, essentially, you are that junior teammate, Alex Albon. You got to step it up and show you could race with Carlos Sainz. Get up there. I think Carlos Sainz has to feel pretty good seeing what's going on with Williams those last few weeks. I'm thinking if a driver that did not start the season is able to run and get points here and there, with all my experience, I could go in there and bring consistent point finishes for Williams. Carlos Sainz has to be feeling pretty good. Alex Albon, under pressure, he needs to step it up, perform, because if he doesn't, if I'm the Williams team, I'm thinking have a clause where if you don't see Alex Albon living up to the potential, not racing, giving Carlos Sainz a run for his money, try to find some way to have Franco waiting because he has proven to everyone he might be the replacement for Logan Sargent, but he is definitely worth the move. And I think he has a future in Formula One. One driver who might have a future in Formula One, depending on how the cars fall, especially in the McLaren camp, Pato O'Ward. Pato O'Ward, of course, he participated in that first practice session, 13th fastest. If you've been watching social media, you have seen how the Mexican fans have just treated Pato O'Ward like a rock star. Massive amount of fans turning out to see Pato O'Ward, try to get his autograph, get a picture, grab a selfie with him. Pato O'Ward has the rock star treatment in Mexico City. And we all know how this deal came about. It was particularly after the controversy over the INDYCAR CEO, Mark, who looked more out of touch this week, seeing the aftermath of Pato's huge welcome reception in Mexico City. Because got to remember, it was all the way back in Milwaukee when Mark, who thought, I think, was looking at this as, okay, we're just going to focus IndyCar on where we're strong at, not really expand. And I think there was people that gave Mark the benefit of the doubt that, okay, IndyCar, they're not at the level they used to be. They're just trying to slowly build up. But after seeing Pato, the popularity he has, the rockstar treatment, he just looks more out of touch, Mark, over at IndyCar. I think overall, Pato O'Ward, very promising future for whichever series he's in. Because right now he's in IndyCar. He is competitive in IndyCar. But you just never know. If the McLaren Aero team in IndyCar has a fast car and he could go off there, get wins, get those super license points, the rumors will be swirling. And especially Sergio Perez, let's be honest, his future is not exactly going to be in Formula One for the long haul. He's not going to be in a top level team like Red Bull for a long time to come. And this is a question for everyone in the chat room. Comment. Which Mexican driver will bring the biggest crowd to Mexico City, in your opinion, starting in 2025? Will it be Sergio Perez in Formula One, whether he's with Red Bull or another team, the V-Carb team? will be Daniel Suarez. When NASCAR comes in, his tenure with Trackhouse Racing, he got a win this year. He made the playoffs, but he's now out of the playoffs. Or do you think 2026, Pato O'Ward in INDYCAR, will they have more of a crowd draw because of Pato's success in INDYCAR as of recently? And let's look at Pato O'Ward, 25 years old. Comparing to Sergio Perez, 34 years old and has been in Formula One since 2011, 14 years in F1. Most of those years he finished in the top 10 in points. There's a couple seasons he didn't. Right now, 8th place in the points. Many question his future because he's just not living up to the expectation of Red Bull, not living up to driving against his teammate. You just know Max Verstappen is going to finish ahead unless bad luck occurs. Sergio Perez, we see the quotes that, oh, he's planning to be here for a long time, but we know how Formula One is. It's definitely a sport of what have you done for me lately? Sergio Perez has not done much for that Red Bull team. Look at Daniel Suarez, 32 years old in his 8th season in the NASCAR Cup Series. Bit of a rush start. Carl Edwards suddenly retiring. Suarez is brought up. May anticipate 1 year too soon. Goes from Gibbs to another ride, but it seems to have landed solidly with Trackhouse Racing. 2 career wins, Sonoma and Atlanta. This year he made the playoffs, but it just seemed once they got into the playoffs, just dreadful performance. At the end of the day, Daniel Suarez, he has a big, passionate fan base in the United States, especially his amigos. That's great. But again, just like in Formula One, in NASCAR, you have to perform. This year, Trackhouse Racing, they have to be feeling pretty good that at least both of their drivers got to win. But unfortunately, Chastain missed the playoffs. Suarez got in, but could not get a second win. Next year, they're going to add in a third driver, Shane Van Gisbergen. There's going to be pressure for all the drivers to perform. You could anticipate Shane Van Gisbergen to be the favorite at all the road courses. Ross Chastain, if he has a fast car on the 1.5 ovals and could be up there, he could win. So where does this leave Daniel Suarez? The restrictor plate, super speedway type tracks where you're going to be in the draft? That's great. You can find yourself up towards the front and contend for the win. But there's so much out of your control. You cannot rely on those super speedways. And then that brings to the road courses, which, yeah, Suarez got his first win at Sonoma. But now you're going to have Shane Van Gisbergen, a very tough teammate. He is not going to lay down and let you beat him. It's not going to be an easy road for Daniel Suarez in the Cup Series. So when you look at Suarez, you look at Sergio Perez, you look at Pato O'Ward. Pato O'Ward has the most promising future. In IndyCar, the Arrow McLaren team, always fast. There are some tracks he struggled at, Portland being one of them. He just cannot seem to handle that track. But the ovals, he's pretty good. Indianapolis 500, we're seeing the huge crowds turn up for Pato O'Ward this year. Imagine if he had won the Indianapolis 500. Massive. I just know it. Mexico, one of the big things about the track, of course, is in Mexico City, right there in the city, not far from the airport. Largest city in North America, 25 million, ahead of New York City. They got a booming economy, especially in technology, shipping routes. They're becoming a global player. And of course, the passionate fans, especially in motorsports, any sports, they gravitate towards Sergio Perez, Daniel Suarez, Pato O'Ward, and of course, the driver Adrian Fernandez, which Mark from IndyCar was comparing to when he said, we don't have that big of a popular driver. Well, here's a little bit of a news flash. Unfortunately, when Adrian Fernandez was racing, he was in kart from 1993 to 2003. And most of those years, kart was much more popular than the IndyCar series now. And for the most part, much more popular than the Indy Racing League during that time period. So that is just you cannot compare as if it's the same series and the same driver from Mexico. Totally different series, kart, much more international flavor compared to the Indy Racing League back then. Now that they have merged and you got this new unified IndyCar series, it is just not on the same level of what IndyCar racing used to be in the 90s. So overall, Mexico City, they could easily, I believe, hold three major motorsports events: IndyCar, F1, NASCAR, all three of them having one Mexican driver, all three of them having good crowds for that. But the thing I think is going to make it really hard now for IndyCar, they waited too long. NASCAR beats them to Mexico City. We know IndyCar seems to struggle when it comes to scheduling the 2025 and every season. People talk about we need more ovals. Well, we lost Texas Motor Speedway. We got another street course. People are mixed about it. Do we need more street courses? From all the talk of, well, Pato's not that popular, the Pato Who that started up in the Milwaukee Mile weekend, to now, oh, IndyCar has done a tremendous amount of progress in getting a race in Mexico City. Why were you sitting around, Mark Miles? What were you doing, IndyCar? You can't be so conservative. You can't be just assuming we're going to be the second or third best. You got to put your stars in front of their home countries. Pato O'Ward easily going to bring the crowds to Mexico City if there's an NTT IndyCar Series race in 2026. And the thought that McLaren could potentially partner with Hendricks to get Pato O'Ward to participate in the NASCAR weekend, where it is a Cup Series or an Xfinity Series race, that's bad news for IndyCar. You don't want your biggest star to be racing in his home country in a NASCAR car. Come on. That's just not good for your business. So overall, IndyCar, the battle for Mexico between these three series is very much up in the air. I think no particular series has a big advantage, but when it comes to the drivers, Pato O'Ward, I think, has the most promising future. The big thing is IndyCar cannot just hold him back. He's in the F1 car practicing this weekend. He's getting that huge crowd. If he's in the NASCAR car during the NASCAR weekend, he's going to bring a huge crowd. So you know he's going to bring a huge crowd to an IndyCar event where he's racing for the win, trying to get that win. IndyCar just needs to step it up for their season in 2026. Let's continue on with a little bit more about, this time, NASCAR Cup Series in Homestead-Miami. Of course, they're going to be out there racing the second race of the round of 8 for them. And overall, this is one of the most popular tracks, Homestead-Miami. So many different lines in the corners. The progressive banking has made this track a fan favorite. A lot of folks still would love to see the track be the final race of the year to crown a champion. I always, especially with this reconfiguration, if you remember, it used to have 4 corners similar to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Then they made the corners more round but less banking. And then they added all this banking that it has currently. I just fall in love with this track from where it started to where it is now. I would love to see this be the season finale again. Can you imagine the championship for, and then now, especially after Ross Chastain last year going out and winning the race as a non-championship contender? I think you will see some spectacular racing where you're going to see drivers say, I don't care about a championship no more. I'm not in it. I'm going to go out there, try to get a win like Ross Chastain. You're just all going to have to race me for it. I think Homestead-Miami definitely could live up to the hype as a championship season finale event. 2 drivers hoping to get into the championship picture: Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, easily 2 favorites for this race weekend. Kyle Larson, of course, he loves this track. Tyler Reddick has been successful in this track. The 2 of them, they just need to go out there and run perfect races. It seems Kyle Larson, if he's not winning, something's going wrong. We all remember what happened at Homestead when Kyle Larson, following Ryan Blaney to pit road, locked it up and hit the trash barrels full of sand, damaged his car. Tyler Reddick, he's coming off a week where he was rolling over in Las Vegas. He will love to score points, get the win. Kyle Larson loves to go out there, get the win, so that way they don't have to worry about points or anything in Martinsville. This is going to be a huge advantage. Whichever one of those two drivers or any of the playoff drivers could get the win. It's just not be stressed out entering Martinsville about points, trying to win. Just go in Martinsville, just run your race. And really, you don't even need to worry about playoff points because at the end, you're in the championship 4. So you could give a care less about the stage points at Martinsville. Just try to go out there, get a win to say you got another grandfather clock. But at the end of the day, if you could win here at Homestead-Miami, and especially for Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, you are going to put yourself in a great spot for that championship because then you could really try to do what Joey Logano and that team is doing. We all know Joey Logano and that team's going to do the same thing they tried to do 2 years ago. Get that win early, spend the next few weeks, focus on Phoenix, and coming out of Phoenix strong and hard to beat. One driver that's going to be very hard to beat this weekend, besides Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick, I'm looking at Christopher Bell. He came so close to that win at Las Vegas. He was so frustrated because he knew he had such a fast car, such a dominant car, and could not get the job done. I think he could get it done this weekend. He's been overall very good during these playoffs. Little mistakes, finding himself towards the front. Really, if it wasn't the strategy call by Paul Wolf, Christopher Bell would have easily been in victory lane, already clinched the championship 4 spot. But that was not meant to happen. He still has a huge points day. Really, if he was to get 2 stage points, 2 stage wins, that's going to put him over 60, have a solid finish. He could point his way to Phoenix. But I know he does not want to do it. He just wants to go out there, get the win. He does not want to do what he had to do and win at Martinsville to get into the championship 4. He'll love to just get it over with, get a win at Homestead, secure his spot in Martinsville that way. So Christopher Bell, be watching him. He's going to be a potential to win at Homestead-Miami. And 2 drivers that have won here, but they need a win, in my opinion, to gain that momentum back. Denny Hamlin, William Byron. Both drivers have been winless since the month of April. They have not won a race since April. That is just, considering Denny Hamlin's always a contender for the championship. William Byron, Daytona 500 star. He looked like he was going to be one of those drivers that's going to be hard to beat. He got to the championship 4 last year. Barely. He had struggled in Martinsville, but he still got in. I just don't see them exactly at the championship caliber level. Denny Hamlin, bad luck, mistakes, not getting the win. Las Vegas, not having a fast car. William Byron, it looked like he was back, but just not exactly the fastest to get the win. And said it himself, they need to get better. He was disappointed. If neither one of them gets a win at Homestead, at least in the case of William Byron, have a good points day, stay above the cut line, and hope nobody below the cut line wins, or else you're going to be in trouble. But I just find it a little bit hard to believe that both of these drivers have not won a race since April. Both of them, in my opinion, need to get a win because if they don't get that win, Martinsville could be very chaotic. Yes, William Byron has won in Martinsville. So has Denny Hamlin. But we know what has happened in Martinsville. A bumper could just push you out of the way and you're out of the picture. This happened to Denny Hamlin. William Byron almost had that happen to him last year. Those 2 drivers need to get a win because you cannot rely on Martinsville. And I think the momentum, if you don't have the momentum entering Martinsville, there's too many good drivers out there that will. Kyle Larson, my opinion, Joey Logano. Let's not forget Alex Bowman, another top 5 finish. I think he's going to have a solid day. He could play the spoiler, but I don't anticipate him to really be much of a factor just because the playoff drivers are really going to step it up. And one driver that has to step it up at Homestead, Chase Elliott, 53 points below the cut line. His last top 10 finish at Homestead-Miami, 2020. He is in a must-win situation, in my opinion. There's the only way you're going to point your way to the championship 4. If you're Chase Elliott now, you win the stage points, you have a solid finish, and everyone else has bad luck in Homestead. And then again, in Martinsville, those ahead of you have bad luck, and you just have 2 solid, consistent races. But that is not going to work. Chase Elliott has to go out there and get a win this weekend. If he doesn't, there's Martinsville. That's a potential track where Hendrick Motorsports owns that place. They could be very good at, but you got teammates, William Byron, he'll probably be in a situation he wants to get the win. Kyle Larson would love to get another win. Alex Bowman, another way to just cap off a pretty decent season to make it a little bit better. Plus all the other playoff drivers. Chase Elliott, you got to be thinking if he doesn't win, he could be in trouble, especially nobody has trouble and he just ends up having a decent day at Homestead. Chase Elliott, I mean, considering he's one of the most popular drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series, I just feel like this year, if he didn't get that win, we'll be talking about, does that team need a change? In my opinion, I think that team still does need some sort of change for next year because they're clearly not living up to the expectation. If he didn't get that win, would he be in the playoffs even? A lot to consider for Chase Elliott fans out there. He is, in my opinion, in a must-win situation. And the last driver in the playoffs that we had not talked about, Ryan Blaney. He was second place last year in this race. My opinion, I believe he is in a must-win situation. He's not as big of a point hole as Chase Elliott, but he can't go up there and just anticipate 2 top 5 finishes at Homestead and Martinsville, and he's in. It's not going to work that way. Everyone's very glad he's going to be in the race car, that he is okay to come back racing. After those 2 hard hits at Las Vegas, a lot of concern about his health. He said he's okay. He's going to talk to NASCAR about the hits and ways to improve this car. But Ryan Blaney, the defending champion of the series, I wouldn't say it's a major upset if he doesn't make it in the championship 4. We've seen past champions not even make the playoffs. He at least made the playoffs in. He had a couple close calls for wins, especially Atlanta earlier this year, where he just lost out to Dan Suarez. It would be a disappointing season, as in he did not repeat as a championship, and multiple wins that could have been there slipped away, like Gateway. Ryan Blaney, if he could get a win, put himself in Phoenix for the championship, that would, I think, change the season narrative around. And for Roger Penske, can you imagine how thrilled he'll be to have 2 cars secured? It's unfortunate Austin Cindric is out of the playoffs, but at the end of the day, if you could have the remaining 2 cars in the championship, 50% chance of getting a championship with one of those 2 drivers, you're in a really good spot. And Ford will have to be feeling pretty thrilled, especially if they have 2 Fords in there, 1 Chevy and 1 Toyota. The favors are with them, and the way things have been going for Roger Penske, Phoenix has been a good track to them. Do not count them out for this championship. When it comes to championships, let's switch over. MotoGP and the Repco Supercar Series, the grid ranking is now down to 9 drivers and riders left in the championship hunt. Here's a look at the updated ones. Red indicates they're mathematically not eligible for the Grid Ranking World Championship. Yellow are the scores that have changed today that we'll discuss, because at the end of the day, MotoGP sprint race in Thailand, Nea Bastianini took the win. Jorge Martin's second place, so his score went up to 17.05, and Pecco Bagnaia third place, 17.53. Now, Will Brown entered with a little bit of a higher score and has dropped to 16.18. Why is that? Well, unfortunately, he had a really horrible race weekend so far. Crash in practice, significant damage to the car. Was able to start the race, but had to work his way to 7th place to claim some points. One of those big deals where at this race, the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise, for longtime IndyCar fans, kart fans, you remember this track. The walls are right there. Made a simple mistake, spun the car around, was facing the wrong way, and then got hit by 2 more oncoming cars. So not a good start to the weekend. Will Brown, of course, has another race this weekend. Cameron Waters won his first race in the Supercar Series, so he's going to be looking to trying to sweep the weekend. And Nea Bastianini, he's going to try to do the same as well in Thailand with MotoGP. Of course, both races coming up later tonight, and we will recap all the races on Grid Live Wrap Up Sunday. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our program. Approximately 90 minutes after the conclusion of the NASCAR Cup Series race or Mexico City Grand Prix, in case that race for some reason goes longer than planned. Now let's pick a winner for those races. Encourage everyone in the chat room, comment who is going to win each of the races. We'll discuss. We still got plenty of points on the board. If you're starting with us, unfortunately, just because there's less than 25 races to go, it's going to be hard to claim that championship. But if your name's in green, you still got a shot at the Pick a Winner championship. Let's start off with Formula One, the Mexico City Grand Prix. And this is going to be hard because we're doing it without any qualifying taking place. I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. If Charles Leclerc could survive the first lap, first corner mess, and he has the lead, or even see second or third place to a McLaren driver or Mercedes or even the Red Bull especially, I have faith that Ferrari team could get him out ahead through pit stops, through strategy, and then he could just use that pace of that Ferrari and get ahead, take the win. Charles Leclerc, my pick for Mexico City. NASCAR Cup Series at Homestead-Miami, I'm looking at Kyle Larson. I think this is the race where Kyle Larson is going to dominate. That's what he did in Bristol. That's what he did in Roval. I think he's going to go out there and dominate this race. He's going to find that high groove along the wall. He's going to be super hard to beat. I don't think we're going to have a flurry of cautions like other races, especially towards the end. I think he's going to run away, put the crowd to sleep, but wake up anybody that's thinking he is not in the championship four, because at the end of the day, he will be in the championship four with a win at Homestead-Miami. MotoGP. This has been very fun the last few weeks, MotoGP. Just loving it. And I'm going to go with Marc Marquez to take the win. He is back. He could have a good, strong run. I anticipate, it's been a while, the championship rider is going to make a mistake and not finish. I think that could easily happen. Marc Marquez is going to pounce on the opportunity and take the win at Thailand. And then the Supercar Series second race at the Gold Coast Surfers Paradise. Give me Cam Waters. Make it a sweep. Love to see that. I think AAA Racing will not get a win this weekend. And then, of course, they're going to enter the championship deciding race weekend in a few weeks' time. In the chat room, Adam, for pick a winner, going with Pecco Bagnaia, the points leader. Second place in the points. Jorge Martinez, the points leader. Pecco does lead the grid ranking, though. Cam Waters as well. So you're thinking the Cam Waters sweep. Max Verstappen for Mexico. It's amazing to say that Max Verstappen has not won a Grand Prix race since June of this year in Spain. Nobody would have saw that coming if I was to tell you it's going to be that long. And here's the thing I'll throw out there too, Adam. I'm glad you brought up Max Verstappen. If Max Verstappen does not win in Mexico City, we go to Brazil, where Mercedes has been good there. We know McLaren's going to be good there. Ferrari's going to be good there. If he does not win in Mexico City, I think he'll be winless in Brazil. And then you only have the remaining races. There's a good chance Max Verstappen might not get another win this year. So I think Mexico has to be a race he has to win, or else he's facing the likelihood of being winless. NASCAR Homestead, Denny Hamlin. Like I said, Denny Hamlin, he needs to get that momentum back. He needs to get a win. Put himself in the championship four, because he is not going to point his way in there. The playoff field is too good. Denny Hamlin trying to get his first championship. He'll love to get that. And also clear his head a little bit with everything going on with the lawsuit with NASCAR pending. Of course, he is a co-owner of 2311 Racing. With that said, a big thank you to our investors calling the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. My name is Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching. Remember, we'll be on the air tomorrow, approximately 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Homestead-Miami. Monday, Grid Encore, Ben and Brown on another Motor Monday to recap everything from the Xfinity Series, trucks, and so on. Wednesday, Grid Tonight, the latest in motorsports news from around the globe. And then we'll do this all over again next weekend for Martinsville, for Formula One, Brazil, and of course, all the racing across the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, hit the bell icon, and we'll see you next